He'll be wrestling Greg Ernzen from Leavenworth Immaculata for the Raiders. Greg 27-1. And before we get to the match, we're going to the medal stand from 103. Let's quickly give those to you again. The champion, well, right now we'll go backwards as they're giving the medals. In 6th place was Joe Mermis of Waukegan. In 5th place, Seth Harrison of Plainville. In 4th place, Todd Holmes of Silver Lake. In 3rd place, Scott Jenkins of St. Francis. And then as we just saw, the 2nd place medal goes to Pat Mosier of St. Mary's for the Bears. And Jairo Rito of the Leota Indians picked up the win with a 10-3 match win over Mosier. So there you have our 103-pound wrestlers. That's the medal stand. Getting ready at 119. Let's take a look at the matchup again, Fred. Koster against Ernzen. A freshman, Koster from Hoxie. Ernzen, a sophomore from Leavenworth Immaculata.
Yeah, Koster came into the tournament unranked. He had to upset the number 1 ranked wrestler in the state in the quarterfinals. And last night in the semifinals, he wrestled Paul Lacker from Hoisington. And I'll tell you what, I saw a display of courage there last night. This kid just stuck to him like glue. And very unusual for a freshman to wrestle as tough as he did last night. He was in danger a couple of times of being put on his back with a half Nelson, and I thought his shoulder was going to dislocate, but he wouldn't go to his back. Of course, Ernzen comes in ranked 2nd in the state. He's 27-1. His only loss to the top-ranked wrestler in 4A at this weight class, Graham from Santa Fe Trail. So we could have us a real barn burner rematch here.
A barn burner in a big barn of Gross Memorial Coliseum. Pete Koster will be in the red singlet, says Hoxie. Ernzen with the big eye on that green singlet for the Leavenworth Immaculata Raiders. Head coach Andy Kiefer. Ernzen took 5th at 112 last year, and he was a regional champion this year to get here. Koster coming in, a freshman, unranked. He was a regional champion, and he took 3rd at the Panther Classic as they work towards that outer circle. Head coach Kurt Baker in his 11th season. Again, they're trying for their 3rd state championship in 5 years. Talk about tradition. We also mentioned one of those youthful wrestlers with a lot of enthusiasm. Well, here's one of them, the freshman who just, as they said, grew as the season went on. Most of his losses happened earlier on.
That's right. And toward the end of the year, they said he just started winning and winning and winning. Of course, he comes from a long family tradition. I don't know how many Koster boys have been wrestling up there, but it seems like I can remember that name the last 10 or 12 years. And I'm sure it hasn't been that long, but he's got an older brother wrestling for a championship later on this evening. And of course, now Ernzen, I remember when he started wrestling when he was about 7 or 8 years old. So they've both been at it a while, and they both have a pretty good knowledge of what they're doing.
I like the coaches in the corner. No score. We're midway in the first period. They've got red carnations. Those guys look sharp.
Yeah, they always look sharp at Hoxie. I don't know.
The wrestler from Leavenworth Immaculata, Ernzen, shooting in for a takedown as Foster backs out of bounds. Again, Foster in red, Ernzen in green. The 2nd-ranked wrestler, Ernzen, going against the unranked Koster. Again, these are the Kansas Wrestling Coaches Association rankings. Boy, I tell you,
Koster isn't backing off any just because he's a freshman. He's trying to take it to Ernzen. Of course, Ernzen is trying to give it back. Somewhere along the line here, maybe somebody will score.
Now, no score yet. We've got 20 seconds and counting in the first period. And, boy, Ernzen really trying to drive in and get a hold of Koster's right leg. No luck. Out of bounds.
I believe we just got a double warning for stalling there. It looked like referee Jim Worth held up both fists as he came back to the center of the mat. And that generally is a double warning for stalling. He doesn't feel like they're doing quite enough to work their moves. There we go. Head on head. Koster trying to control that wrist and get himself in a position where he can suck around behind or do that short fireman's carry. And of course, he's blocking Ernzen there with his other arm as Ernzen tries to come around.
Boy, they just attack, counterattack, attack, counterattack. Again, no score. That's the end of the first period. 0-0 for Hoxie. Just unbelievable what they've been able to accomplish. They've had several more state championships since 1969, 6 to be exact, or they're trying 5. They're trying for their 6, 669. Northwest Kansas League, again, that word tradition comes to mind. They've been dominant in this sport over the last 20 to 30 years.
Yeah, one fellow from up in that part of the state said, you know, he said when boys wrestled up there, it was no problem. And if they didn't make weight or if they lost, there was no problem. They just didn't eat for a week.
They indeed take their wrestling very serious. Boy, still no score. And I'll tell you, one of the wrestlers...
Coster's getting a reversal right here. He can hold it. Nope, he couldn't hold it. He's got to protect his back now. Ernzen is getting the count. Got him on his back.
Ernzen's on top. He's working to get those shoulders down.
Coster's in deep trouble right now. He's got 1 minute and 12 to fight that, and that's a long time to fight a pin. But, of course, Ernzen's a little loose on the head. Now he's getting it tightened back up.
And before he could get it tightened back up, Coster able to slip an arm out and try to gain some leverage. And before this whole situation started, Coster looked to have the advantage.
Yeah, he was in pretty good shape, it looked like. But he's in bad shape right now.
No points yet. You can bet there's going to be a couple on the board once this predicament's over.
Excellent job of fighting off a pin by Coster there.
Received 3 points. Ernzen received 3 points on that move, so Coster's still alive, but now he's trailing 3-0. 30 seconds left in the second quarter, or second period.
That's why we call it a near fall, because he was almost pinned. It was almost a fall, but not quite.
Oh, look at the job Ernzen's doing with his legs.
Yeah, I tried to catch that Turk ride, grab that arm, and hold him on his back.
Turk ride. 16 seconds left in the second. 3-0. Ernzen out in front as they again have an official timeout. Turk ride. We saw the leg work in and try to, I thought it looked almost like a figure four as he tried to ramp it through and really work that lower body. What's a Turk ride?
Well, there's a crossbody ride, which can be turned into a guillotine, okay? Or there's what I call the Turk's ride. Now, other people may call it something else, but that, instead of going across the body, he was working on the same arm where he had the leg hooked.
I see.
He had his left leg hooked, and he was working with his left arm on Coster's left side. But if he had been across, then we would have called that a crossbody back where I come from, wherever that is.
Some talk, a lot of talk about wrestling dominance in Kansas, how strong Western Kansas, the Northwestern Kansas League, the Mid-Continent League, how strong they are. Beloit, you might want to toss them in there. But Eastern Kansas has started to say, hey, we're making strides, and they were very well represented in this tournament, and they get stronger and stronger every year.
I think the biggest equalization we're seeing, though, Lance, is across the classes. It used to be that 6A was kind of the doormat, and they've been working on that image, and they've picked up a little bit. And, of course, most of the 6A teams are in the eastern end of the state. Class 5A is picking up, too, so I think we've probably got a pretty even balance of power through the 4 classes that wrestle now.
And it makes it for a really exciting tournament. Again, out in front, Hoxie. We haven't talked much about the team title. As we said, it really seems a moot point at this juncture of time. Hoxie way out in front with 115, but a battle for second. Oakley with 95, Plainville with 91, Phillipsburg in the low 70s. We'll try to get the updated team totals to you. We haven't seen any change yet, but we'll work on that. Again, we're back to action. 16 seconds left in the second period. 3-0. Greg Ernzen out in front of Peter Coster.
Because we don't want to tell Peter Coster that it's a moot point at this juncture. The team title may not be in doubt, but his title is, and that's all he's concerned with right now is his title.
That's the end of the second period. 3-0. Ernzen out in front. Yes, team title is one thing. Individual title is another. It's always interesting. Hoxie seems like such an individual sport, but over the last 3 years that we've been doing this, I've really seen a team cohesiveness from these schools, and you have to look at that team title because it takes a total effort.
Well, a team title is always nice for the school. Of course, if your team's not going for the title, then you're going for the individual titles, and that's what makes wrestling such a unique sport compared to many others. Now, many states have what they call a team championship and an individual championship. They wrestle dual matches for a team title, and a tournament like this for individual, and don't keep a team score. And so there's been some talk about doing that in Kansas also.
We're again, after 2 periods of wrestling action, stalled because of a bloody nose, and as you can see, they're cleaning up Peter Coster. Well, I'll tell you, you work that face down in that mat, something's got to give, and usually it's the cartilage in your nose, not the not the mat.
Coster had a problem last night with bloody nose. He must have got it bumped sometime yesterday afternoon because it was bothering him last night also.
2 minutes left as we get ready for the final period. Ernzen tries to step out of that bottom position, and he's working. He might get the advantage, but nope. They're not letting him up as Coster is able to put him back down.
He's tenacious. He's not going to give it up easy. He may give it up, but you're going to have to pay for it.
He's got a minute 40 to try to get a couple points, and Ernzen at this point is, if you were Ernzen, you were up 3-0 with a minute 42, how aggressive would you be as we go back to the side dealing with the blood?
Ernzen's total goal at this time with a 3-0 lead is to stay off his back, number one. Number two, to maintain his position without getting called for stalling too many times. And number three, then to try to score. So he's got a 3-0 lead. He can give up an escape. He can give up a reversal without losing the match. But if he gets a little bit radical and shooting for points and trying to roll the kid over on his back and winds up rolled on his own back, he loses 5 points in the match.
I always thought I was interested in, we watch this in basketball or any type of sporting event, when a team is ahead or an individual's ahead, they seem to change their strategy just a bit, and sometimes that hesitation or that stall maybe sometimes in some instances could cost them some advantage or at least some momentum.
Yeah, many times it does. Kids got to know how to stall. Coaches have to teach creative stalling, I call it, and there's a way to stall and there's a way not to stall, but actually the best stall is a good solid offense. Of course, we saw Ernzen there just hammer a standing switch. He did an excellent job with it, and there was nothing Coster could do to stop it.
Just stepped out from underneath, and he's really working on him, and that move gave him a 5-0 lead, and with that escape by Coster, he got a 5-1 mark, so right. He's back in the match, and they're locking horns. A minute 17 to go. Coster to get here, Fred, upset Josh Price, who took third last year. He upset him in the quarterfinals to get her. So Coster, the freshman, had a great tournament, as did Greg Ernzen. He got by a wrestler from Plainville by the name of Van Shiver in a close match, 4-3 in the semis.
Yes, it wasn't an easy path for either one of them. And, of course, Ernzen was here last year, and he placed 5th or 6th. I can't remember. 5th. And so he's been here. He knows what it's all about. And he just got called for stalling there. So we're going to, evidently my double warning for stalling that I thought was given earlier was incorrect. I keep forgetting that Jimmy has a way of signaling both up with his fist closed.
Jim Worth, the official?
Yes. Refereed with Jim several years. One of the, I think, probably as fine an officials there is in the state of Kansas.
Very aggressive on the mat, and again, no doubt about his call when it's made.
Nope. Now Jimmy lets you know what he called.
We have 30 seconds left in this match. 5-1. Greg Ernzen in the green, trying to hold on to the lead, and Peter Coster, the freshman from Hoxie, trying to pull out, trying to get some momentum. Can't seem to get much. He's in a stalemate because Ernzen keeps grabbing around the shoulders, trying to neutralize him. He's doing a good job. 10 seconds and counting.
I'll tell you, Coster's putting some pressure on those other Hoxie kids, though, because if he can go out there as a freshman and wrestle like that, they're going to be expected to do some things themselves. They're all over than him.
That's the whistle. Greg Ernzen from Leavenworth Immaculata for the Raiders, and head coach Andy Kiefer gets the win. His record goes to 28-1. And for the freshman from Hoxie, Peter Coster, boy, what a great tournament. He finishes the season with a mark of 29-11. So congratulations to these fine young gentlemen. Greg Ernzen, though, the state champ at 119 pounds. Josh Price of Stockton finished second. Porter from Leota finished fourth. Van Schiver from Plainville finished fifth, and Leiker from Hoisington finished sixth at 119. So coming up next,